born in the shadows of graves, dug for the victims of war or the bodies of negligent poverty, labeled as either essential or brave. We had to watch them lay old Lady Liberty down on the lathe, shave all her salient features away. 'Cause we like our women condemned, we like our women contained, we like our platitudes flaccid and vague, and we like to deify people objectively late for the Hague. We like our senators boneless, because we've only elected the spineless, who all lack backbone and possibly teeth, because they don't bite back and they don't speak up. They resign like sheep into silence. I don't have much hope when the meek all inherit the planet, because they fumbled the House and the Senate and handed the reins to the people they spent 4 years all proclaiming as baseless, corrupted upholders of bigotry, leeching our taxes like bandits. When all of our leaders are wearing that standard. All of them work for the global purveyor of violence, pollution, genocide, bias, fascism, child starvation through sanction, cultural cleansing, and propaganda. Black Mariah, White Miranda, Streets Crescendo, Fascist Answer. Any donation you give them is feeding the cancer. Bloating their egos so they can come dangle the carrot, promise you $2,000 and hold it for ransom. Like we should fall all over ourselves when the squad tweets. We should lick the squad's boots, kiss the squad's feet. They ask, what would the money we promised you months ago actually mean? What would a one-time check to pay part of your rent and allow you to eat for a week mean to you and your family of 3? Tell us you need it. Tell us you want it so bad. We can't hear you. Tell us how thankful you are for the squad, 'cause we're all that you have. Tell us how grateful you are that we watered a bill down to please the Republicans, knowing their votes weren't needed to see that it passed. That's called unity. When your overlords can get along peacefully and agree on the most cost-effective way to starve American families to death, discreetly kill off the disabled, and slaughter people of color with impunity in broad daylight, that is what they mean by unity. That's what they want us to be fucking thankful for.
And when you dream, you're by yourself. Don't know the streets where you'll find yourself. Go back to sleep, don't mind yourself. Both hands on your head. When you dream, you're by yourself. Don't know the streets where you'll find yourself. Go back to sleep, don't mind yourself. Both hands on your head. Both hands on your head.
Money's talking while hunger prays. Bunch of Nazi-loving child fuckers run the state. 911 is on some 1-800-CIA, and plastic pundits pump your trust and fund your shallow graves. It is malice just for malice sakes. Congress houses wealthy corpses, breathing hexes, arming forces, then spilling out 1 million greedy snakes from all their orifices, coursing down the Congress floor, across the aisle, out the door to curse 1 million more before they've run their bloody courses. Clip your wings like Klippenstein, then out and burn your sources. God collapse at times is hard to witness, other times it's gorgeous. There's something satisfying in the act of watching something greedy choke upon the very thing on which it gorges. And there is something humbling blooming in the thought that once the dust is settled, mine could be the hand that clears the moss and lights the torches. That mine could be the voice that wakes the very fucking orchids. Mine could be the words that stir the armies in the orchards. Then all the lowliest of roots, I'd be the one to call them forward. Let the very earth be witness first to see the fascists flail and flounder when they learn they're truly cornered. Once they learn the class war has boiled down to looters versus hoarders. Let the earth absorb their meager worth once they've been quartered. Laugh and say I only followed orders. Kinda like the guy who flew the drone that leveled Doctors Without Borders. When all the classic Clinton morals launched a couple wars and off the books a dozen more. And so Congress opened up the store and moved 250,000 mortars. And bombed allegiance out of those who wouldn't kneel before us. And now the stage is set and we're the starving chorus. Who hunger not for justice but those leaders that ignored us. Who hunger not for justice but those leaders that ignored us.
Go back to sleep, don't mind yourself. Let what you've seen rewind itself. And when you dream, you bind yourself. Both hands on your head. Both hands on your head.
Perfect time for you to burn the bridge to self-forgiveness. Now's the chance, take a stand, stay your hand before you cast another vote for corporate interest. Another vote that chokes your hopes of owning your own home or opening a business. They love to say their hands were tied, the stars just weren't aligned for them to get their votes in line to see their promises delivered. But they killed it in an instant. Bills don't die by accident, they're all assassinated on behalf of the congressionally kismet. By some lobbyists who see themselves as agents of clandestine fate, not fences in a prison. Dealing in the stolen goods of sleeping slaves and trading on the futures of their children. Betting on a spread of daily dead where every grave's creating profit by the millions. For some fascists lurking in the wings and all of their affiliates. And every Etna demigod our senators conduct their darkest dealings with. It really gets impossible to document or fingerprint. Cause it isn't just a pattern of corruption, it's the very fabric making up the structure of the system that we're living in. So dash your hopes and down a margarita goes. You box the shadows, take a little nap, and then you get back in and swing again. But if the margarita made you sick, you probably wouldn't take a drink again. So if you're voting either party, honey, think again. I recommend you steel your nerves and never serve an officer, a president, a despot, or a king again. And mark my words, the day will come where we will rise and sing again. And if voting makes you sick, well, no one's forcing you to drink again.
I didn't have to wait for long, I never had to change a song. I just sing it like a raised alarm. Smile when you say I'm wrong. I can't even fake this on, can't fake while you play the charms. And I don't know the page we're on, but this is where you say you're wrong.
This is where you finally admit you weren't ignorant. You boldly voted Joe like an informed and blissful idiot. You chose to blur the parts of Biden you don't find the prettiest. Now you choose uplifting news and filter out the grittiest. But the truth is something coarse enough that even when it's hidden, it's apparent when you feel it on your fingertips. I know it's hard to deal with from a distance, and up close the truth is hideous. But there's just no getting rid of it. You've gotta let it in, or it just worries at your skin in every moment, loud or intimate. But shake it off, for fuck's sakes. You don't have to celebrate or be so proud of progress by imaginary increments. You don't have to heap such constant praise on fucking villains, like their stillborn promises are honestly just isolated incidents, and not the product of the principle of privilege. Not intentional eugenics just by any other synonym, covered up with desperate clusterfucks of rosy images, labeled plain by any other name except for what the fucking image is. So once you stare the page down enough, you'll spot the difference. That one is red and one is blue, and that's the only truth, because neither one delivers on that promise of deliverance. One is red and one is blue, and that's the only difference. And the rest are isolated and imaginary incidents. One is red, one is blue, and that's the only difference.
I didn't have to wait for long. I never had to change a song. I just sing it like I raised along. Smile when you say I'm wrong. I can't even fade the song. Can't fake while you play the charts. And I don't know the page we're on, but this is where you say you're wrong.
You were told to come alone. Joe said if you vote for him, he'll abdicate his throne as the father of the crime bill, soul of Jim Crow. Proud to live and vote as a Strom Thurmond clone. If he tried to kiss your daughter with a camera rolling, he'll try more than kissing her alone. Cozy up with Jill for a photo like a portrait of the Kissingers at home. You know I hate to kill the messenger, but if he's gotta go, we can FaceTime. Slit his throat while he stares into the phone. Like if you don't know, kitten, now you know. This is where austerity has gotten us. This is all that palpable excitement for a 20-year wait on forgiveness for your student loans. But a distraction's a distraction, and it's time to see some action. So here's one last song for Joe, before I try to keep his name out of the lyrics in my phone. Try to shift the focus to our senators and everyone in Congress who is all too happy to be hidden while we're wasted to the bone. It is not food insecure, it's starvation, and it lurks in almost half the country's homes. So if you plan to lay down, hold your nose and vote for Joe, have the guts to admit that you chose to submit, and that you decided lending your support to a pedophile must be a step towards hope. Then a vote for a man that spent his whole life implementing laws that dehumanized people of color is a vote against fascism. When you know damn well he's just a kinder, dumber face on the same white nationalism. So baby, throw away your scruples with the memories of your activism. Watch your weak resistance usher in a fucking cataclysm. Elect a bigot war pig and say you're gonna push him into pacifism. That's some bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. Bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. Baby, that's some fucking bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. God, that's some fucking bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. That's some fucking...
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Hi, everybody. Hi, it's Andy. It's Reef sitting over there. We're here. We're ready. We're doing this thing. It's How Do We Miss That? It's Sunday night on INN, Indie News Network. Appreciate everyone hanging out on IndieMediaToday.com as well, over on Substack. Good to see you, everyone. If you're there in chat still hanging out, please say so. Please say hi. Sorry about all the 10 minutes of music beforehand. Usually I like to go live over there right away. I just forgot to hit the button. But yeah, we've got a crazy show. Usually we try to cover things on this show that are not the typical, what's typically covered, showing up in the news. But right now, we kind of have no choice, don't we? So there's a huge news story about what's happening, about an unprovoked attack. So we're going to cover that. We're going to keep our eye on Gaza also. Hi, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Celia Owens. I can't put that up on screen, but thank you, and good to see you over on Substack. Again, go to indiemediatoday.com, and hopefully you should be able to see the live stream running live there. We're also live on Twitch. We're live on kick.com/Indie News Network. We're live on Twitter, which is x.com/GetIndieNews. We're also live on Indie Media Today. Also, IndieNewsNow.com, which is our self-hosted website. If you go to the Watch Live section on Indie News Now, you'll see us there, platform free. And, of course, we're on the YouTubes, where most of the people that are watching are. Although we got Stargazer Steph and CS Moria already over on Twitch as well. So everybody's everywhere. I saw Ghost Starts over on Rumble. We're live on rumble.com/c/Indie News Network. So many places to watch and hang out and catch INN. It's been a crazy weekend. I did a one-on-one with Matt Weinglass of the Homeless Left. We'll talk about that later. That was really good. And we had a 3-hour epic long clip show for Jesse Jett Friday night. You were just listening to some Jesse Jett tunes on the pre-show music. So every Friday night on INN, there is a clip show or a replay of the Jesse Jett show from the night before. And yeah, we're ready to get going. Man, this is definitely sorry if you don't if you are an Israel fan, you may not want to be hanging out for this chat and for this live stream. This is going to be this is going to be a fuck Israel and fuck Zionists kind of show. I can promise you that for sure. Before we get started, let me also impose, and this is an updated sheet because I realized that Jim Nelson, who's been a subscriber for a while, was never added. Apologies. And we got a new subscriber over at INN Newsletter this week, Dave Rios. Thank you so much. I also updated the contribution links and moved Natalie Williams up with all the other glowing top supporters from the network. So we really can't do this without you. Appreciate everybody for your support. The ways to do that: Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. And like you said, we can do it at indienewsnow.com at our website. We've got to keep the media free section. INNnewsletter.com. All right. That's our network Substack. And then indiemediatoday.com, which is my newsletter. And there's a bunch of people watching there now live, which I'm really happy about. And thank you, Substack, for making that possible. So this week we saw some narratives. We saw, people say that sometimes it takes, decades happen within a span of a week, and it kind of feels like that's what happened here this week. Now, first of all, let's get to Israel. If your side, this is a tip, if your side is intentionally shooting journalists, you're the bad guys. Yeah, that should go without saying, but somehow it doesn't. But yes, that's our first. That's where we're going to start. In advance of their sneak attack on Iran, Israel also knocked out complete internet to Gaza. And I brought a tweet from a doctor who has been treating patients there. And he says there's no internet, no signal, no sound, no world beyond this cage. I walked 30 minutes through ruins and dust, not in search of escape, but for a fragment of a signal, just enough to whisper, we are still alive. Not because anyone's listening, but because to die unheard is the final death. I think YouTube's trying to do that to all of us. Gaza is silent now. Not with peace, but with obliteration. Not in a silence of stillness, but of smothering. They severed the last cable. No messages leave. No images enter. Every grief, even grief, has been forbidden. I passed the corpses of buildings, of homes, of men, some breathing, some not. all of them erased by the same hand that erased our voices. This is not a siege of bombs alone. It's a siege of memory, a war against our ability to say we were here. The bombing never stopped, especially in Jabalia. They show the streets where children beg for food. They show the lines where mothers wait for flour. They show hunger itself. No water, no food, no exit. And those who try, those who reach for aid are struck down. People die here and no one knows. Not because the killing paused, but because the killing of connection succeeded. The internet was our final breath. It wasn't a luxury. It was the last evidence of our humanity, and now it's gone. And in the dark, they massacre without consequence. I found this faint eSIM signal as a dying man finds a flicker of flame. I stood beneath a broken sky, risking death, not for rescue, but to send this. A single message, a last resistance. If you're reading this, remember, we walked through fire to say it. We were not silent. We were silenced. And when the cables are restored, the truth will bleed through the wires, and the world will know what it chose not to see. And what was deliberately hidden from it. It's not what it necessarily even chose not to see. It's what Israel ensured they did not see. It's just awful. Again, fuck Zionists, and not just, refast. What do you say when fuck Israel isn't enough? And my answer is fuck Zionists, because Zionists are much more than Israel. Except it's not, because they're much more than Israel.
It is. It's the same thing.
It's kind of
There's no difference.
Okay. Because they're not.
Zero difference.
They're not.
And my whole point of the question is that, like, saying something isn't enough. So, also terrible answer.
Well, I think that they
Take that.
They
that, sir.
What would happen if they fucked around, and they would find out. And they certainly have found out for the last couple of days. Now, this guy, funny enough, Guy Christensen, all right, who apparently has now been expelled from Ohio State University for being pro-Palestine, and insane that they did this, all right? But he says, I'm just appalled at the lack of coverage on Israel's final solution for Gaza. They're taking it over entirely, concentrating Palestinians into camps, and then will ethnically cleanse them out. It's named Operation Gideon's Chariots. And I believe that was covered on INN News recently as well. But Guy is unafraid, and he had Zionists try to appeal to his parents and dox him in that way, and dox his parents and get his dad fired. We covered that a couple of weeks ago, and he's still standing up strong. So all the credit to that kid. And then I wanted to mention that as of yesterday afternoon, internet is back in the entire Gaza Strip. So please support us. And so they didn't just fully knock out internet, although they did that while starving out and continuously shooting at the people going for aid. The Gaza Health, the fake organization of NGOs that set up to distribute food, they basically have now run away and said that it's impossible for them to do so. And it's not just because Israel's made it impossible, it's because they don't want to do it, and the ruse is over now. They accomplished what they wanted, which was to make it look like they tried. So that was the beginning of our Fuck Israel segment, just about what they're doing in the Gaza Strip. And then we've got the unprovoked attack. Now, I decided I want to lean on Indie Media Award honoree Alan McLeod from Minpress News here for this one, that in the past 5 days, Israel has started a war with Iran, massacred starving Gazans waiting for food. They bombed Lebanon.
Yep.
They bombed Syria. They carried out a naval attack on the port of Yemen. I didn't even hear about that. And then they also kidnapped, quote unquote, the Greta Thunberg and then sent her back to Sweden, and nothing happened to her. And she became a celebrity darling. And I don't even really want to necessarily talk about the flotilla, except that it seems that the people that were on it, for the most part, got the celebrity treatment while nothing fundamentally changed. And they tried to make a statement, which we all knew, which was that Israel was going to block any aid that was going in, that it was going to be woefully insufficient. And I believe Tiago Avila is still sitting in an Israeli prison right now because he wouldn't sign anything. If I'm correct, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but...
How dare you?
What about the other lady? Isn't she also there? Still?
No.
She signed stuff?
She did not sign, but they deported her to France. She was a member of the European Parliament. Gotcha. I believe she was a delegation from European Parliament to France. So that's what Alan had to say. But Sam Husseini actually shared Fiorella's video, 9 seconds, about smoke now in Tehran as Israel went and struck the capital. This after Israel struck Lebanon. Okay, we wait for the West, of course, to blame Iran like they always do. Right?
Yeah.
You can see the smoke.
Yeah.
Sam Husseini points out that last September, as Netanyahu was at the UN and isolated, he ordered the assassination of Nasrallah. Today, the UN voted with 149 yes to demand Israel abide by international law, so it bombed Iran. This is how Israel responds to international law and decency. Oh, okay. Jimmy, thank you for letting me know that Tiago is actually free. Good to know that they only held him prisoner and threatened him with solitary confinement. But thank you for letting me know, because I didn't see that. I wanted to bring an article from another Indie Media Award honoree who you don't see very much, but he's been more active lately, Gordon Dimmack, friend of the show. Reef and I did an interview with him on INN News, about a year and a half ago already. And he was on AM Wake Up pretty recently. You can check that out with Pasta and Steve on an episode of AM Wake Up about a month and a half or 2 months ago. That was really good. But he wrote an article the other day about how Trump and Iran are nukes, the path to peace in the Middle East. Right, he's updated this several times already. So he says yesterday morning, the IAEA announced that Iran appears to be enriching uranium at previously undeclared facilities. If true, it would mark the first time in 20 years that they've done this, which would potentially be a breach of the nuclear deal. Cue the headlines. Iran's on the path to a nuclear weapon. We've all heard this before, right? I remember hearing Israeli leaders warning about an Iranian bomb back in the early 80s. We, again, talked about this about 6 weeks ago, all the times that Bibi's cried wolf. Every few years, there's another alarm bell, another prediction, and yet no bomb. So why am I talking about it now? Well, timing is everything. And for Netanyahu, timing is survival. As soon as the war in Gaza ends, his political shield vanishes. He's facing corruption charges. He knows it. Everyone knows it. If this war stops, he's either out of office or on trial or both. His only way forward is to keep the war going. And now we know how he plans to do it, escalate to war with Iran. So he says yesterday, just before Netanyahu ordered airstrikes on Iran, Iran had begun releasing documents that it claims to have hacked from Israeli nuclear research centers, which potentially including the material leaked to the Sorek facility. While the IAEA has yet to authenticate the files, the timing is impossible to ignore. These leaks suggest that Israel's undeclared nuclear arsenal and the double standards surrounding it are finally being dragged out into the open. And there's a link in his article to the alleged documents, and I believe Fiorella also tweeted them out. There's four images. It also raises serious questions about the IAEA's role. It's worth remembering that Israel has never signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and isn't subject to full inspections. But Iran is. So that means that the IAEA can publicly condemn Iran, but not Israel, even though Israel is the only nuclear-armed state in the region. Huh. That's not oversight. It's a loophole by design.
Nope.
If Netanyahu can launch airstrikes and then point to the IAEA report as justification, was the report a neutral finding, or was it a pretext prepared for a war already in motion? The IAEA's silence on Israel's own stockpile only reinforces the suspicion that this isn't impartial monitoring, but nuclear policing written in Tel Aviv. Overnight, Israel finally launched the airstrikes on Iranian territory that had been warned of for days. Netanyahu, that guy, confirmed that they were a direct response to the IAEA report accusing Iran of breaching nuclear protocol. Huh. So they're allowed to bomb people as a response to a report? Iran responded by launching over 100 drones, which was likely just the first wave. The U.S. says it wasn't involved. Of course it wasn't. It was just their planes, their weapons, their regional radar systems. Reports from multiple sources suggest that both U.S. and U.K. warplanes were scrambled to shoot down Iranian drones. So, what was that? Hit that again?
Wasn't me.
So while Washington denies pulling the trigger, Israel clearly knew that they'd be shielded. It wasn't me. This was never going to be a fair fight. And now we're learning that the strikes may have killed and did kill several senior IRGC officials. If confirmed, that alone could provoke a sustained Iranian retaliation. The market certainly believed it because Brent crude oil spiked dramatically after the strikes, jumping from $70 to over $78 a barrel in hours. That's not good. That means I hope everybody filled up their tanks this weekend. But the story didn't begin with missiles. It started with leaks. Iran claims to have hacked and acquired Israeli nuclear documents, threatening to release them. The authenticity, still being verified, but they're being posted and the symbolism is clear. Iran is calling Israel's nuclear bluff, and now the bombs are falling. So where does it go from here? Again, we're reading an article for those who are just joining by Indie Media Award honoree Gordon Dimmack about the assessment from the other day about what happened through Friday. Iran has long warned that it could target oil infrastructure in the Gulf. And if that happens, we're not just looking at war, we're looking at a global economic crisis. And while all eyes are fixed on Iran, let's not forget Israel cut Gaza's internet just before the strikes began. Also timing. We're now seeing images of entire Gaza districts on fire. No coverage, no live feeds, no accountability. What else has happened there while the world looked away and the lights were turned off? Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has issued his own threat to Iran. Make a deal or there will be nothing left. And even more brutal attacks are planned if Iran doesn't agree. It sounds a lot like a mob boss who quotes one message: this isn't negotiation, it's nuclear blackmail. Trump's trying to make him an offer he can't refuse. This is mafia politics. Drones and diplomacy hand in hand. Israel bombs, Trump threatens, and Iran is told to crawl to the table in Qatar this weekend and sign. According to Axios, 2 Israeli officials claim Trump was only pretending to oppose Israeli strikes on Iran in public. Behind the scenes, they say he was fully aligned. It wasn't opposition. It was theater. Go figure from an Emmy Award-winning WWE Hall of Fame heel. Huh. No way.
Yep.
Trump's newly appointed U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, said that he had to take shelter 5 times during the overnight Iranian response. And yet, earlier this week, Huckabee declared that the U.S. no longer supports a Palestinian state as a policy objective, suggesting instead that it could be created somewhere else in the Middle East. Why wasn't that story reported on at all? The U.S. ambassador to Israel said, we do not believe in a two-state solution. We believe in a one-state, Israel-led only solution. What? And nobody said a word.
But then also taking someone else's land to give to the Palestinians. It's just a cycle of bullshit.
And that's going to be Egypt. We know this. But there's no plan.
Yeah.
We covered that a year plus ago. There is no plan for the Palestinian people. Their plan is to wipe them out completely and drive them into the sea.
Which is why every Zionist, like, for months and months was like, well, why won't any other Arab countries take them?
Right.
Yeah, we know
There's
why.
23 other Muslim countries. Yes, but A, it's not their land. And if they do take them in, that's acknowledging and basically consenting that it's okay that the U.S. and Israel stole that land.
And how many of those Muslim countries is Israel trying to take?
Yep.
You know? Like,
part of Syria, part of Lebanon. Eventually, the Greater Israel Project includes part of Saudi Arabia, all of Jordan, part of Egypt, and part of Iraq.
If they decide it stops there, which I doubt it. You know? I think world domination, Pinky. Right. At this point.
I don't think so. I think that they want to restore that. And once they get there, maybe then whoever genocidal lunatic is running it then will decide that they want more than that, maybe. But right now, the patch is on the fucking uniforms. That's what they want. That's their plan. And they'll stop there for now. All right. Open Secrets data shows that pro-Israel donors gave thousands to Huckabee during his presidential runs, and his own Huck PAC, Jesus Christ, hauled in $11 million in 2024. All right. Yeah, it might as well be Hawk 2 with the way that it's just spitting and blowing Israel. Funneled into Republicans tied to Israel's agenda. It's another way to funnel Israel money through an American and toward Congress people and buy off that agenda. This isn't mere diplomacy. It's a network of political influence reinforcing U.S.-Israel policy coordination at every turn. And there's a fucking ambassador who also, again, ran for president and somehow was still allowed to have a PAC? Wow. There's no laws anymore, and there's no cops on the beat or anyone to prosecute any of this shit. They're trying, but it's getting thrown out. You got Trump-friendly judges. It's a crazy fucking time. All right? So much for Trump being anti-war and putting a stop to those stupid wars in the Middle East, eh, MAGA? Right? With all this in mind, I have to ask an uncomfortable question. Are nukes the path to peace in the Middle East? Mutually assured destruction is what he's talking about. Fiorella had a post about that today. Right now, it looks like the only way to survive is to have them. If you don't, you get bombed, blackmailed, and blockaded. If you do, suddenly the world listens. Although I don't think that anybody's really listening in North Korea. So I kind of disagree there. Although we don't know. There's no way in hell that any of this would happen if these countries knew Iran had nuclear weapons. Israel has them, though, allegedly. But yes, they do. And that nuclear arsenal is what gives them the power to dominate the region, along with the support of Western powers. It's the support of Western powers that really gives them that power. This has allowed Israel to commit heinous crimes on the Palestinians and bomb its neighbors with almost impunity in ways that future generations will study as one of the darkest periods in history. If peace is ever going to be possible in the Middle East, it can't be built on mafia threats and nuclear hypocrisy. It has to start with justice, with equal rules, with human rights that apply to everyone. Israeli, Iranian, and Palestinian alike. Until then, this doesn't look like peace. It looks like war. And damn, that's a good one by our brother Gordon. And I have a bunch more here. First of all, so we know that there was a sneak attack or an attack, an unprovoked attack of Iran and Tehran by Israel in which they murdered IRGC top generals. And according to Matt Kennard, Netanyahu's presidential plane Wing of Zion took off from Tel Aviv that morning at 11:22 local time, and then landed in Athens, Greece. So he launched strikes against Iran and then ran the fuck away because he knew that the bombs were going to start flying back at Israel. Pussy. All right, this is the path, the flight path of the plane. Shout out to Matt Kennard. Again, another Indie Media Award honoree from both Declassified and on his own as a journalist. I mean, awesome stuff. So my question here, and I quote tweeted that and say, why would Netanyahu flee Israel after launching attacks on Israel? What a coward. When will he be arrested for war crimes? He ordered another unprovoked attack on a sovereign country after warning everyone he was going to do it. What's it going to take? That's the third one. He's attacked Syria unprovoked. He attacked Lebanon unprovoked. You can call Hezbollah provocation, but Hezbollah did not bomb Israel. All right? And now he's doing it to Iran. But Iran fucked around. Okay, so this is a Zay Squirrel thread that I thought was really good. So I decided to bring this one too. Israel has decided to assassinate Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei to try to cause total state collapse. Unless Iran establishes deterrence in the very short term by striking both Israeli and U.S. assets in the region and eliminating top figures in the Israeli regime, they will proceed. The U.S. and Israel did not launch this war to try to eliminate the nuclear sites. They know they can't. They're too well protected and dispersed, and any damage can be reconstituted in the short term. They launched it to cause total state collapse in Iran, beginning in phases. The first phase was to eliminate the top military and IRGC leaders while also going after scientists and mass killing civilians in the process. They did the same thing in Lebanon, by the way. This would create the false impression that they're still somewhat restrained and focused only on military and nuclear targets. Even though the first casualty was a child in Tehran. That's weird. Okay, better. After taking what they expect to be a similarly constrained response from Iran, they will see that as confirmation that Iran will not adhere to its own stated red lines and is still afraid of meeting Israel at the same level of escalation. This is their calculation. That is their green light then to proceed to the next phase, which is to target and kill top political leaders, including Khamenei. Their hope isn't to replace the current government and state with some rehash of the monarchist, Zionist, fascist through his failed son. They know there is no base of support for that inside the country. Their hope is to do another Libya and Syria, unleash proxy forces that they fund and arm together with the Gulf Arab Shield puppet regimes and NATO, Erdogan, and turn it into a spiral of death and chaos, a concocted civil war, quote unquote, where Iranians are paid and armed by the CIA and Mossad to kill Iranians. That's what's happening in Syria right now with Jalani.
Yeah.
The MEK and other such proxy forces have already been trained and prepared and are ready to be activated. They'll begin with car bombings and terrorist attacks, mass killing civilians. Quote-unquote ISIS will reappear again and do its typical job for their CIA Mossad masters. Please notice that ISIS doesn't attack Western targets, they attack Muslims. The U.S. and Israel decided to launch this war before Trump was elected, and it has the full and total support of the entire U.S. military, intelligence, industrial complex, and the media and political class, both Republicans and Democrats. And it would have also happened if Kamala Harris won the election. And she's got receipts about that too.
Yep.
They see Iran and the axis of resistance and its allies with Russia and China as the main obstacle to full and total Zionist U.S., NATO, Israeli imperial hegemony in the region, and by extension, the world, as they twist their mustaches. And they want to destroy it, as it is the only one that, unlike Russia and China, does not have a nuclear deterrent, and they want to get to it before it obtains it. This is an existential war of survival, not just for the Iranian state, but for Iran as a nation. If this project succeeds, the country will be balkanized, ethnic divisions will be stirred by foreign actors, CIA and Mossad and the Gulf puppets will fund and arm dozens of proxy death and rape squads roaming their fiefdoms. Tens of millions of lives will be destroyed. Everything must be done to prevent this. Iran has the weapons to do so. It has the capacity to do so. It's only a question of will. Does it have the will to do what it takes to prevent the mass destruction of their own people and nation? Squirrel certainly hopes it does. We must all hope it does. Saeed Mohammed Morandi was out there saying, look, these were all the old missiles that they sent, and they did the damage that they did.
Mm-hmm.
If they send the new stuff, boy.
So David Miller says this is completely correct. The Islamic Republic must urgently learn from events in Lebanon and Syria. Any missile silos and other weapons that are not used in the coming days will be destroyed. Miller says, use it or lose it.
Right. Continuing, the squirrel says all of this goes back to the assassination of Nasrallah. As Sam Husseini had mentioned earlier, Israel had the ability to assassinate him whenever it wanted. That's not the question. Iran can assassinate Netanyahu if it wants. Ukraine can assassinate Putin. Putin can assassinate Zelensky. Assassinations are not the problem. Every state with a barely competent intelligence has the capacity to assassinate anyone. It's a question of deterrence. The reason Israel did not assassinate Nasrallah is because, as Gallant later came out and admitted, because they were deathly afraid of the response by Hezbollah and Iran. They thought it would lead to such a significant response, not just in terms of a missile strike on Israeli territory hitting military infrastructure, but assassinations of top Israeli officials, that they didn't go ahead with it. Then slowly but surely, the deterrence that Iran had established was broken down. Let's look at the timeline. Last April 1st, Israel attacks Iran's embassy, killing many. On the 13th of April, Iran responds with Operation True Promise 1, a symbolic pre-signaled strike. No deaths, just some limited material damage. May 19th, Israel kills Iran's president, Ibrahim Raisi, and the foreign minister, Amir Abdullahian. God, terrible. Iran responds by covering it up and going along with the lie that it was just an accident, so it could avoid having to retaliate at all. Israeli officials were openly gloating about these killings, and it's an open secret in intel circles that they were assassinated. July 30th, Israel kills top Hezbollah military official, Fuad Shakur. July 31st, Israel kills Hamas leader Haniyeh and does it in Tehran itself. Iran then vowed they would retaliate, but Genocide Joe and Blinken began the fake diplomacy propaganda that Trump and Witkoff also initiated ahead of the current war, saying they would get a permanent ceasefire in Gaza as long as they didn't retaliate. 17th, 18th of September last year, Israel does its terrorist pager attack in Lebanon, killing and blinding many, including toddlers, children, and hospital workers. Already before this, they'd already begun bombing Beirut, which Hezbollah and Nasrallah said was a red line. Israel saw all of this as confirmation, that there would be no retaliation by Iran and Hezbollah of the same kind, meaning the direct targeting and mass killing of top Israeli officials and any human shields who they happen to be hiding amongst at the time. Because if Israel doesn't give a fuck, why should Iran? Apparently they did. This was the green light to go ahead with the assassination of Nasrallah on September 27th. Now, the answer of why not is because the U.S. would also then come down on Iran. By that point, it was already too late. All of Iran and the broader axis of resistance's deterrence capacity had already been totally shattered. They kept saying in words, "We will strike you at least as hard as you struck us, if not harder." Then they kept not following through on their own stated red lines. Right. Nasrallah's assassination was when the U.S. and Israel knew that the war on Iran they had already wanted to launch all along was now ready to go in the short term within a year. Iran then did retaliate to all this on October 1st, Operation True Promise 2, which actually did do some significant damage, although the Western media class deliberately lies about this, but it was limited to military infrastructure. It didn't meet the same level of the Israeli attacks, not even close. No top Israeli officials were eliminated, no targeted assassinations, no human shields that they were hiding amongst were taken out. All deterrence was completely lost at this point. So, mutually assured destruction was a thing in the 60s that kept us from allegedly going to war with Russia. The mutually assured destruction disappeared. Just think of it from the U.S.-Israeli perspective. You killed Nasrallah, the main leader of the Axis of Resistance, alongside Khomeini himself, and the only cost you had to bear was some material damage. And not even to U.S., to Israeli stuff. Why would they happily not take that exchange? Of course they would. They love that exchange ratio. They would take that deal any day. It's like the perfect gift to them. And now they're coming in for the final kill. With the exact same standard they've been applying all this time, beginning with the assassination of top military and IRGC officials and scientists and any civilians who may be around them. Taking hits that consist primarily of material damage, which they love. That's a perfect exchange for them because it allows them to spend money to rebuild it on their defense contractors. Then they move on to the next phase, murdering the supreme leader of Iran and the Axis of Resistance itself. The only way to stop this now is to break this cycle. And the only way this can be done is by hitting them and doing minimally the same damage to them that was done by them, and ideally going beyond that, in fact, far beyond that. You have to look completely insane and unpredictable. You have to come over as totally irrational, capable of destroying the entire region if necessary. In other words, you have to make them fear you, just as the genocidal Israeli death cult and U.S. have done for themselves. First, eliminate, this is not my idea. This is the Zay Squirrel writing this. Do not take our channel down for doing this. I am reading somebody's plan on how Iran would retaliate materially so that they actually would challenge what Israel is doing. First, eliminate top Israeli military and political officials. Any human shields they're hiding amongst with them. It's not a matter of being able to. Of course, Iran is able to. It's a question of will. Second, target U.S. and military assets everywhere in the region. And not just infrastructure, not just buildings. It can't just be buildings. Third, close the Strait of Hormuz and begin striking oil fields in the Arab Shield Gulf puppet regimes. All of this.
That's the tough bit.
Well, they've got to attack Qatar. All of this has to be done.
And Saudis and UAE and
all this has to be done, and then the scale can be increased if deterrence has not yet been established and the war continues. This is the only way that Zay Squirrel sees to bring the genocidal Israeli and U.S. death cults to bring them to heel, and tens of millions of lives can be saved. Maybe with hypersonic missiles.
Hypersonic. Did you see that? Oh my God.
If that's even a hypersonic, allegedly that was still just a ballistic missile, but one of the newer ones.
Holy shit, it was moving quick.
Yep, that flew it. Boom. And
those in league with imperialism.
It made a
bureaucrats.
It made a massive damage.
The reactionary section of the intelligentsia attached to them.
Right. And of course, Iran should immediately proceed with acquiring a nuclear weapon. As John Mearsheimer says, I'll play the clip below. As soon as they've done that, instant deterrence is established, and the U.S. and Israel will halt their project of collapsing the Iranian state and destroying the Iranian nation. The propaganda on all this is actually insane. Think of what the reaction would be if any other state bombed the US, UK, France, Germany, and eliminated the heads of their military forces and scientists, along with many civilians. The Western media and political class is treating this like just some totally normal, average, everyday thing. Yeah, that's fine. What are you so upset for? Totally normal. Okay, fine. Do a few missile hits on buildings again, but that's it. Nothing beyond that. That would be clearly insanely provocative. By the way, they're not even saying that. They're not even hysterically denouncing the strikes on the military infrastructure beyond the pale. Israel has the right to defend itself. It's absolutely fucking insane. Just do the simple test. What would the U.S. do if the exact same thing was done to them by Russia or China? What would the UK, France, Germany do? The U.S. and Israel launched an all-out total war on Iran. Anyone who's downplaying this fact is deliberately lying. They're deliberately fabricating propaganda to launder the war and further it and ensure it leads to what I said it will if Iran does not take the appropriate response immediately. And here's the Mearsheimer clip. I'll play a little bit of this.
I think there's no question that a nuclear-armed Iran would bring stability to the region because nuclear weapons are weapons of peace. They're weapons of deterrence. They have hardly any offensive capability at all. And if Iran had a nuclear deterrent, there's no way that the United States or Israel, for that matter, would be threatening to attack Iran now. In the same way that if Saddam had had nuclear weapons in 2003, the United States would not have invaded Iraq. And if Libya had nuclear weapons in 2011, the United States would not have gone to war against Libya. So I think that if you had a Middle East where other states besides Israel, and this of course includes Iran, had a nuclear deterrent, it would be a more peaceful region. Well, it's possible there'll be some proliferation. I wouldn't bet against the fact that maybe Turkey or Saudi Arabia would acquire nuclear weapons, but people have been predicting widespread proliferation for decades now, and it's never happened. But I think there are two reasons that it wouldn't happen. One is that the Iranians would not be able to blackmail anybody in the neighborhood with their nuclear weapons. We've created this myth in this country over the past few years in talking about Iran that any country that acquires nuclear weapons can blackmail other countries or use those nuclear weapons for offensive purposes. We have a lot of theory and a huge amount of empirical evidence, 67 years now, which show that no country with nuclear weapons can blackmail another country as long as somebody is protecting that country or it has its own nuclear weapons. And this leads to the second reason. The United States is going to extend its nuclear umbrella over Saudi Arabia and over Turkey, the way it extended it over Germany and Japan during the Cold War. And we will make it perfectly clear to the Iranians that they cannot blackmail anybody. So there'll be no great incentive for Turkey or for Saudi Arabia to acquire nuclear weapons.
And as you know, when you're involved in contact sports, it can be very dangerous. And so they live in a dangerous world. And on top of that, nuclear weapons are the ultimate deterrent, right? It doesn't get any better than nuclear weapons. And of course, this is why states pursue nuclear weapons. I believe that if Iran had nuclear weapons, the United States and Israel would not be threatening to attack Iran. You don't attack a country that has nuclear weapons and put its survival at risk. So I think if Iran were to get nuclear weapons, the United States and Israel would back off and stop threatening them. Then there's always the case of Libya. You remember Colonel Gaddafi? We told Colonel Gaddafi that if he gave up his nuclear weapons program, his weapons of mass destruction programs, that we would leave him alone. You know what happened to Colonel Gaddafi? He's now 6 feet under, and we helped put him 6 feet under. If I were Colonel Gaddafi, I would have developed nuclear weapons. North Korea?
What difference does it make?
We got him. North Korea is going to give up its nuclear weapons? I just don't understand the charade that we engage in, where we're constantly acting as if North Korea is going to give up its nuclear weapons. They'd be nuts to give up their nuclear weapons. Oh, by the way, do you see any evidence the United States is giving up its nuclear weapons? Is Israel giving up its nuclear weapons? Is Britain giving up its nuclear weapons? Is India, Pakistan? Of course they're not. Why not? Because nuclear weapons are the ultimate deterrent. In the case of Israel, it's by far the most powerful military in the Middle East at the conventional level. Does it really need nuclear weapons? You could argue it doesn't, but they're not giving them up, nor is Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is by far the most powerful state on the planet in terms of its conventional forces. It has never shown an iota of interest in giving up its nuclear weapons. In fact, it's going to modernize its nuclear deterrent. So all I'm saying here is there are really powerful incentives for a country living in a dangerous neighborhood that has the United States and Israel out there with their gun sights on you to get nuclear weapons.
Yep. Professor John Mearsheimer.
I love just the Zoom recording.
Yes.
I love just that.
He does Zoom calls.
You know?
And let's not forget
right.
that the UK is also complicit and guilty of war crimes in supporting all of this attacks on a sovereign country. Again, going back to Matt Kennard, who's been chasing the spy flights and other flights that support Israel out of RAF Akrotiri, okay, in Cyprus. That is a base that the UK holds, that they use to refuel and run spy flights out of. But he said as of that was yesterday morning, 6:04 a.m. All right, Eastern. This morning at 8:51 a.m., Keir Starmer sent a UK military Voyager KC-3, that's a tanker, air-to-air refueling plane from the UK base on Cyprus. It flew over Lebanon, Israel, and Syria before turning off its transponder over Iraq. I wonder why it did that. Because it was flying in the direction of Iran, and it was in the sky at that moment. Huh. What?
Okay, so it's a air tanker?
And it's a refueler for other aircraft. Yeah,
right. That's my point.
Weird.
Was that this is for, but we don't see any other aircraft?
We don't, but we know that drones were sent. We know that all kinds of aircraft were sent. Again, we don't know.
I mean, the drones wouldn't need refueling.
No, they wouldn't.
This is for like
spy flights,
long range flying,
long range spy flights, and drone flights. Because not all the drones are attack drones. Some of them are recon drones that fly high up.
Yeah.
All right. That is this portion.
Do a barrel roll.
The sneak attack on Iran is this portion of the Fuck Israel segment that we had for tonight. So if you're able to, I'm going to break there and thank all these incredible supporters with our Wall of Fame from Indie News Network. If you're watching for the first time over on Substack, welcome. Thank you so much for checking this out. These are the incredible people that support our network. We are totally user-funded. We don't take sponsorships. We don't do ad reads. And again, all we have is you. These are the incredible people that have done that already. The ways to support our network are Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. And you can do it over at INNnewsletter.com and IndieMediaToday.com over at Substack. And then we have our own self-host. Thank you.
Substack newsletter near you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I have to say that. So, and then Indie News Now is our self-hosted site. So you go over there and go keep the news free. Click on that, and you can direct donate through our Stripe link there. But man,
what's the over under on the Maddow on Substack?
Oh, it's got to be. Look, with Joanne Reed being over there already, and now last week it was the guy
plus
from
215.
Maybe the guy from ABC News who got called out. That was a whole other story in itself. Like, this guy got called out for
Rachel Maddow's death will just have to come as a pleasant surprise to me.
All of us. But there was a story where an ABC News reporter by the name of Terry Moran tweeted on his personal account about Trump shit-talking one of the decisions that Trump had made, and he literally had the White House press secretary call him out publicly and call for his firing, which ABC News was happy to oblige, apparently. He then went and started a Substack the next day where he made over $100,000, apparently, or had a ton of people.
Substack.
Damn, how much?
He made a ton of money.
In one day?
Yep. So a bunch of people have been doing that, and corporate media is almost doing these people a favor. In the long run, they won't be sustainable, but right now they're playing off of their name recognition and popularity that they garnered from corporate media, and are now transferring it to try to suck the oxygen out of monthly subscription revenue and annual revenue over on Substack from the independents, because there is competition out there between the old school legacy people that have been independent on Substack and producing there for years, and the Johnny-come-latelys that have all of a sudden discovered that this is a great platform that all these people suffered through years and helped build. And now, wow, this is a real publishing tool where you can do a ton of stuff, from, making clips and podcasting to writing articles and live streaming vertically, horizontally, RTMP, a ton of capability. All right. And it's frustrating to see. Money, Lebowski? It's frustrating to see the money go towards the people that had the legacy name that Substack is now courting. And we've talked about this in the past. So we did again see not Rachel, but another big corporate media personality from news end up signing up and setting up a Substack and doing very well. And they're far from the only one. I wanted to talk.
The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you.
I love Scott Steiner, man. Steiner math is the best. And
that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
No, not Stone Cold, Scott Steiner. But David Miller.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can give you a hell yeah, Stone Cold. Sure. So David Miller, Professor David Miller, I'm
Correct.
sure we've talked about him in the past. He actually, speaking of Nasrallah's funeral,
tracking power himself.
He attended Nasrallah's funeral in person and then was detained at Heathrow Airport on his way back, and he's been harassed, and they've called for his firing at Bristol University. He's sacked by Bristol University on behest of the Zionist movement, of course, and editor of
jail right away.
Powerbase.info, and he's a producer at Palestine Declassified. Yep. He worked up a thread. Holy shit, and it's a mega thread. We're not going to go through all of it, but I wanted to go through some of it. He decided that he wanted to expose the Zionists. Now, apparently, there was a Glastonbury Music Festival that was held recently.
Glastonbury, correct? Yes.
And Kneecap, the band that has been in the news quite a bit, was invited
from Ireland
to play there.
Correct.
Right. Very very pro-Palestine, but they got famous at Burning Man because they put up a Free Palestine sign behind them, and the Zionists freaked out and lost their minds. All right. Apparently, Reef knows their music. I'm an aging Gen Xer, so I have no idea.
But I would love a fucking Kneecap version of Come Out, Eat Black and Tans would be great.
Okay. David Miller built a thread.
Very much okay with that.
Because he was handed a list. Meet the genocide supporters from the music industry who sneakily wrote a secret, quote-unquote, confidential message to the Glastonbury Festival to try and have Kneecap banned from the festival opening later this month. I've been passed a copy of this secret message, and with it, all the emails of the genocide protectors who signed it. Follow this thread to be introduced to each one of these denizens of the music industry, along with details of their job, company, social media handles, email, and sundry other details. If you oppose the genocide, you may want to write to them or send them a message on social media. I can't. Obviously, anyone who does this should be polite, avoid profanity, and certainly keep within the law. He says, my investigation on the group is behind this is below. So he starts here with this gentleman, David Levy, a genocide supporter who is a partner at Endeavor and a senior member of the WME music team. All right, so he then outs that here's some information from a Code Pink post on Instagram about him.
Yuck.
Talent agency William Morris Endeavor promotes hate and violence against Palestinians. One of their top agents, Brant Joel, texted "kill them all" to a staff group. Sorry.
You're okay.
To a staff group chat in reference to Palestinians and those who support them. Code Pink LA and entertainment labor for Palestine.
On being the world's biggest bitch.
Well, we got a lot of people on this list, so you're going to have to keep that one warmed up. All right. Visited WME's offices yesterday to confront them and deliver a teach-in on how media bias promotes violence against Palestinians. I'm sure that went really well. Remember, again, if you oppose genocide, you may want to write to them or send them a message. And again, he's reminding them to keep it professional and clean because he has to. Here's a second signatory on the secret email sent to Glastonbury. Meet Brian Message, partner, Courtyard Management, co-founder of All Things Considered Limited, co-manager of Johnny Marr.
Fuck. Okay.
Nick Cave.
Go ahead.
PJ Harvey, Tom York, Radiohead, the Smile of Chair Aces Multi-Academy Trust. One wonders if there is a relationship between the vile anti-Palestinian activities of Radiohead and Nick Cave and their contact with ATC. Band, don't it? Yep. So we can count Brian in with the pieces of shit. All right. Here's the third signatory. Meet Mike Greek, co-head of CAA talent agents and supporter of genocide for sure. He oversees a roster that includes Harry Styles, Niall Horan, Haim, whoever that is, One Republic, Sam Smith. So he's into all like the boy bands and pop music. Yeah. Again, I'm old.
Sure.
Tate McRae, The Script, 30 Seconds to Mars, Sigur Ross.
Zara Lathon.
All right. Zara Lathon and Paloma Faith, Westlife. Right.
Sam Smith.
Here's his email, mgreek@caa.com. I didn't say that, did I? Sorry, I did say that. All right. Remember, if you oppose genocide, you may want to write to them or message them. And he goes through this thread. Now, what's really interesting is that it breaks at number 5. Why? Because at number 5, somebody mass reported him for something. All right. But have no fear. He went back in. Here's the 5th signatory on the secret email sent to Glastonbury. Meet Melanie Kessler, a production coordinator in London and a racist genocide heir. A casual acquaintance with her posts and reposts on LinkedIn reveals a litany of genocide propaganda. She even reposts that inversion of reality that is the phrase genocidal death cult, which she applies to Hamas. The whole world knows that the only genocidal death cult in Palestine is the Zionist movement. As ever, every Zionist accusation is a confession. The previous version of this post included Miss Kessler's email, her photo, and screen grabs of her LinkedIn posts. I've left these out as a version of the post. This version, as my account was frozen for the last day as a result of the alleged violation of the Twitter rules. I've commented elsewhere about this on Twitter, and I'm seeking to better understand how the rules are being interpreted. But in any case, Ms. Kessler has chosen to delete her LinkedIn profile, as well as her talent manager profile. Huh, about that. I imagine this is in a bid to pretend that she's not a public figure and to encourage Twitter to believe that screen grabs of her public posts should henceforth now be regarded as private information? I have to say that this attempt to evade accountability will not work. Hashtag dismantle Zionism. And then, as a convenience, he links back to the 6th post so you can continue the thread. Now we scroll all the way down to the bottom, and that would be number 28. So he literally outs and puts profiles out there on 28 genocide supporters, Zionist supporters, and lets people identify exactly who they are so they know within the entertainment industry who they're dealing with and who not to deal with effectively. You know, again, I had a conversation yesterday with Matt Weinglass from the Homeless Left. Matt is actually in Hollywood. He's been a writer. He's been a producer. He started live streaming and podcasting with a small group of actors called the Sherwood Players. And it all ended up breaking down and degrading over politics, which they first decided to avoid talking about. But as COVID happened and more things politically were charged, people wanted to talk about it. And he ended up splitting up the group and doing his own thing and making his own show called The Homeless Left. So that kind of dovetails into this because there are people in London in the entertainment industry, which is just as powerful as the Los Angeles entertainment industry, that are shielding Zionism, whitewashing genocide, and protecting Israel from having any repercussions from within the entertainment industry by bullying and silencing anybody that speaks out against it, like Kneecap.
You're fired.
Meet Josh Binder, who's a supporter of the genocide in Palestine. He's a partner at RMB Law, and that's him in the middle below, the recipient of the Variety 2024 Music Legal Elite Accolade. That's him. Piece of shit. All right. He has also been heavily involved with the Zionist regime's front group, Creative Community for Peace, although all they do is want to genocide Palestinians. All right. And industry ambassadors amid explosive tensions in the Middle East. Oh, look who's in the middle. Look who he's fucking.
This man.
Dude, fucking Mayim Bialik. Literally Blossom. Awful. The worst. All right. Again, there's his contact info right there, including his email, LinkedIn, Instagram. So if you want to pay him a message, apparently you're able to very easily. And we encourage you to very nicely and calmly.
Buttercup or Bubbles.
Anyone who does this should be polite, avoid profanity, and certainly keep within the law. But if you don't, I can't stop you. And you can't say that I encouraged you to do it. All right. So that's the David Miller thread. Man, he went at it for like 3 days doing this research and outing these people. And man,
it was nuts.
Did it make them very angry.
He would put out like a couple, be like, all right, that's enough for a bit. Then he put in another couple. You're like, all right, fucking tea time. You know what I'm saying?
It was like Chinese water torture. Okay. The 8th signatory.
Get a couple of biscuits.
David Laub of Disorder Group. Eyebrows or eyes.
Dude,
are
look at that 5 head,
apart.
first of all.
Yeah,
oh
that's
my
a pretty
God.
Big one.
That's a
all
fucking,
right.
He could pick up fucking cable with that thing. What?
Here's Danielle Livesey from Push Management, who's a supporter of genocide in Levant. All right. And then we've got Sarah Hildering. All right. How much plastic surgery do you need, lady? Stop the Botox. Trust me. Stop. All right. Gary Cohen, I'll bet that is, or Kohana. Okay. He is from Simpatico Music and Brands. Okay. They work with brands like O2, Samsung, Burberry, big brands. They work with us. He does look like he's a little on the quirky spectrum, I have to say. And
what does that mean?
Well, anyone ever seen that show Life Goes On would know what that meant. There's another one. Louise Hart from BMG New Music. All right. BMG is the world's third largest music publisher. All right. So they're pretty powerful when they say that they don't want a band to be part of it. They literally can blackball your band out of existence. They represent Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, Diane Warren, right? Bruno Mars and Pitbull, John Legend. A lot of Zionists in there. Or at least
which one was the one that
Zionism? What?
Which was the like parent holding company of the Diddy ones? Because remember, like that whole Whitney Webb 5-part article that
that's
no
Clive
one's managed
Davis.
to read yet?
That's Clive Davis, Universal Music Group, I believe. I think that's a whole other thing that's completely separate from all of this.
Yeah, with like they were connected to mob shit and the fucking American Gangster and all that shit.
Yes.
Like craziness.
All right, here's
and of course
Saul
it ties
Galpern.
to Israel. Of course it does.
He's the managing director at Nude Music Group and has been for 32 years.
Sure.
All right. Simply Red, The Fall, Julian Cope, The Triffids, The Slits, and The Au Pairs. Very British. Right?
Watch
Even
your
more
profanity.
people I've never heard of. All right. So Richard Baskin, I think I've heard of this guy. All right. Head of Department Music and partner-in-law at SMB in Soho. He's also a supporter of genocide in Israel. All right. Yep. So all of these people, and again, I will put a link to this thread in the description afterwards and you could definitely on Substack, there will be a description there. And then if I can get it into the YouTube videos and Rumble, I'll get it there as well when we put the clips out. Otherwise, the links will all be over at YouTube or over at Substack. All right. That is the David Miller segment. So again, fuck Israel for the control that they're exerting over the music industry in order to try to silence Kneecap and anyone that speaks out against their genocide.
Yeah.
So again, fuck Israel, fuck Zionism.
You just keep scrolling. You just keep scrolling.
Yep.
Another one.
25.
Another
26.
one.
All right. You got all the way up to number 28. Again, there he is. Josh Binder. All right. So again, we certainly don't get monetized for outing the Zionists in the entertainment industry. So we certainly could use your help.
Yeah.
The ways to do that are Cash App, $, Indie News Network. Thank you, John H., for the Cash App. Ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. Okay, we've also got IndieNewsNow.com where you can keep the media free and fund the media you want to see. And then we've got over on Substack, and greetings to everyone over on Substack watching at IndieMediaToday.com. And we've also got the INNNewsletter.com, where we usually publish out a daily update. I did not publish one Saturday or Sunday, but we did put out podcast episodes via INN Newsletter, so you were able to see something. Man, I have a lightning round, and then we can get into...
Bro, didn't I send you the intro to Lightning Round last week?
You just sent me some
lightning,
intro, but I didn't put any music behind it or any graphics or anything else. You just sent me literally
music.
Literally lightning happening.
Just like lightning round.
What you sent me.
And we'll speed it up.
Like
It'll
literally
work.
just
It'll
lightning. Oh, no, before we get to lightning round, there's one more subject I wanted to get to, and that's Mahmoud Khalil. Because, man, what a story that is. You know, I'm a dad. And it's Father's Day. And it's this
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
It's still
Mahmoud,
Father's Day.
It is, technically. It is Mahmoud Khalil's first Father's Day. And the Trump administration wanted to make sure he didn't spend it with his kid for the first time, which is beyond reprehensible and beyond infuriating and triggers the fuck out of me.
I mean, and look what it did to Austin Powers.
Especially when we find out on Wednesday at 5:22 p.m. that a federal judge ruled that Mahmoud Khalil will suffer irreparable harm in detention and cannot be detained or deported based on Marco Rubio's determination. The judge ordered his release on bond by Friday, unless the government appeals by then. Historic ruling in this historic case. But not so fast, my friend. We were all celebrating. Like, yes, Kilmar Abrego Garcia got sent back to stand trial for some other trumped-up bullshit charge that they made up for him. And they want to do the same thing to Mahmoud Khalil.
What a pun. What a pun.
Trumped up charge, yeah.
Trumped up bullshit, I think is the utterance.
And I hate to use corporate media, but they happen to put out a decent summary here of what the hell happened. Judge denies Mahmoud Khalil's release Friday after the Trump admin submits a new filing. These fucking pieces of shit. A federal judge has declined to release Columbia University alumnus Mahmoud Khalil from federal detention after the Trump admin submitted a last-minute filing. How long have they been sitting on this? The administration's tug of war with the courts over Khalil, which has been going on 4 months now, by the way. This guy's been in a hole for 4 months, illegally renditioned by plainclothes, armed cops that didn't properly identify themselves in advance, kidnapped him, shuttled him to Louisiana to an ICE facility after transferring him to Jersey first. Nobody knew where he was or where to find him. All right. What
a pair of states to send to.
All right.
You know,
the administration's
the worst pair.
Tug of war with courts over Khalil represents a historic test for immigrant speech rights, namely those of permanent residents, particularly where they concern pro-Palestine or anti-Israel speech, which he didn't even do.
Right to jail, right away.
Federal government on Friday said that continuing to detain Khalil does not violate the court's Wednesday injunction because his detainment is now based on other grounds, such as being undocumented when he entered the U.S. They made this up after the whole thing. They didn't charge him with this beforehand. That wasn't one of the reasons why. Now it's like, oh, well, maybe we think that you also maybe did this so we can hold you. It doesn't work like this. The administration also argued that an alien like Khalil may be detained during the pendency of removal proceedings, regardless of the charge of removability. We made it up. Khalil may seek release through the appropriate administrative processes, first before an officer of DHS, because we know how that's going to work out, and secondly, through a custody redetermination hearing before an immigration judge. And we know how long that will take also. Again, he's been given no due process. Reality check. Judge Michael Farbiars explicitly refuted this argument in his initial injunction. Quote, the evidence is that lawful permanent residents are virtually never detained pending removal for the story of alleged omissions in a lawful permanent resident application where that the petitioners charged were here. Like, that's insane. This is unprecedented. This is because the Trump administration, they're trying to save face because they're embarrassed that now they have to backtrack on all of this shit when they blustered and swore to their base that this guy was guilty for months. They have no case.
Look at the gaslight.
It strongly suggests that the Secretary of State's determination that drives the petitioner's ongoing detention, not the other charge against him. Despite the judge's refutal, he ruled that Khalil's preliminary injunction didn't ask the court technically to block him from being detained on other grounds. Because nobody could have seen that the government was going to do this. The judge also suggested that Khalil to seek for release through a bail application to the immigration judge. Yeah, good luck with that. The deadline has come and gone, and he must be released immediately, his lawyer said in a statement to Axios. DHS didn't respond to Axios' immediate request for comment, because why should they? Nobody's going to hold them accountable. The detention of Khalil, a leader in Colombia's pro-Palestinian protests, he wasn't. That's a lie. and a U.S. green card holder from Syria, which he was, but he did it by way of England and helping the White Helmets first. Okay, he wasn't a leader in the pro-Palestinian protests. He was a negotiator between the Hinds Hall occupiers and the cops. That wasn't a leader. Caving to President Trump's targeting of the school's federal funding, Columbia suspended and expelled other students and alumni involved in pro-Palestinian protests. We know this. Other student protesters have been arrested, but Khalil's detainment has become a flashpoint across the country. Yeah, I wonder why that is. Maybe because they've detained him without rights for 4 fucking months for immigrant, and it's become a flashpoint for immigrant free speech and pro-Palestinian activism in the U.S. Again, he was not an active pro-Palestinian protester. That's not true. He was not out in the encampments. He said he actually opposed the encampments. The administration has argued that it can remove non-citizens whose presence in the U.S. would compromise a compelling U.S. foreign policy interest, referencing a determination by a fucking lying Zionist piece of shit, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's owned by Norman Brayman and other Zionists like Miriam Adelson. Rubio, in a memo, cited as evidence what he described as Khalil's roles in anti-Semitic protests and disruptive activities, acting as the go-between between the people that took over the building and the cops is now anti-Semitic protests. An immigration court judge had earlier found the administration's argument that he posed threats to U.S. foreign policy was facially reasonable. How? They were challenged to do that. They couldn't come up with one thing. Yeah, the idea that a college student's peaceful participation in pro-Palestinian protests could seriously compromise U.S. foreign policy was always far-fetched. That was another lawyer that filed an amicus brief in support of Khalil. Right? Then, of course, you've got the gaslighters at the White House saying that Khalil obtained his student visa by fraud and misrepresentation. No, he didn't. And now you're going to hit him for this because you've been embarrassed and the fact that you've already held him without charge or, habeas corpus for 4 months without evidence, without a trial?
Disgusting!
Yes, the law authorizes the Secretary of State to revoke green cards of individuals who pose a threat to American foreign policy interests. All right? They claim that he harassed Jewish students. That's what's his name, the fucking douchebag. I can't think of his name now. But he's actually, the person they're talking about got suspended as a Zionist for harassing the pro-Palestinian protesters and pointed to his role in the campus protests. He didn't have a role other than to be a negotiator, a go-between. This is so insane. So insane. Well, fuck the Trump administration. Again, this is being driven by Beitar US and the Israel lobby. So fuck Israel, fuck Zionism, fuck Trump, and fuck the DHS and ICE.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Absolutely. So we will definitely not be remonetized by YouTube for something like that. So we do need your help monetizing elsewhere. The best places to do that are at Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, at paypal.me/Indie News Network. You can do it at indienewsnow.com and go to keep the news free. And we can also do it over at the Substacks at indiemediatoday.com and INNnewsletter.com. You see all those up there. All right. Now we're going to get to the lightning round. Lightning round. Yes, Kurt Boss. Trump is a fucking spineless creature like the rest of them. Agreed. All right. And I saw Iron Chief out there. Good to see you, Iron Chief, hanging out over on the kicks. We got people everywhere. It's great to see everyone. Thank you for hanging out on this Sunday night for How Do We Miss That?
And knowing is half the battle.
I didn't talk really about LA and about the worldwide protests and the escalation that happened in LA last week. But I wanted to bring a video from Popular Information that's a couple of minutes long that described of what are the motivations for the Trump administration and why, one reason why this might have happened. So I'm going to bring this video. I'm going to hit this here. Let's do that. Lightning round, lightning round. Okay. Let's hit it.
After years of fantasizing about using the military against protesters in the U.S., Trump made it happen. On Saturday, Trump ordered 2,000 National Guard members to Los Angeles without approval from the governor, without support from the mayor, over a protest at a Home Depot. By the time Trump gave the order, the protest was about a few dozen people and peaceful, according to the LAPD. No riots, no mobs. The LAPD literally thanked organizers for cooperating. So what exactly did Trump think he was doing? Well, apparently, he believes that a few peaceful protesters were a rebellion against the authority of the United States. That's what the order says. This isn't new. Trump begged to use the military during the George Floyd protests, told governors to dominate the streets. And behind closed doors, he literally asked the defense secretary to shoot the protesters in the legs or something. Quote, the top general at the time literally screamed at him in the White House. Fast forward to 2023, Trump starts openly promising that next time he will not have to ask for permission. In his words, quote, we don't have to wait any longer. And now he's followed through. He deployed the National Guard under a sketchy legal theory not meant for crowd control, just to protect federal property. But we all know what this was. Even local law enforcement said they had it under control. One arrest, a few minor injuries, and a little property damage. Which sucks, but nowhere near a crisis that justifies military boots on civilian streets. Trump declared a great job done by the National Guard before they had even arrived. He posted that while watching 3 hours of UFC in New Jersey. So either Trump is confused, lying, or trying to provoke a confrontation. Let us know what you think in the comments. This is popular information. Read the full report on popular.info and follow along for more accountability journalism. After years...
That really happened. That's a real thing. Wanted to escalate, wanted to use the military, brought the military in, just to show he could do it on something that had not required or justified military intervention. And you're not supposed to bring boots on, soldiers on American soil. I thought there was some kind of a law against that, right?
How about no, you crazy Dutch bastard?
Number two, now this one hit me, and again, I have not heard anybody talking about this. Shout out to Michelle de Cryptodamus, who we've covered some of their articles before. The Justice Department, again, this is the Trump Justice Department, dropped an indictment alleging $500 million worth of Russian money flowed into the United States via Tether. It's always Tether.
Let me call the Russians to help.
All right. This guy, Gungnin, is the founder, president, treasurer, and compliance officer of U.S.-based Evita Investments, Inc. and Evita Pay. All right. Gungnin used both companies to enable foreign customers, many of whom held funds at sanctioned Russian banks, to provide him with crypto, which he then laundered through crypto wallets and U.S. bank accounts. Again,
your crypto and everything else that you're playing with.
This is the Trump administration prosecuting Russians for laundering money using Tether, which is owned and run by our Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick.
Have a good time with your Bitcoin.
It's unreal. And then reminding people, he wrote an article back in September about how much Trump's transition team and now his Secretary of Commerce is tethered to thievery and worse, and all of the illegal activity that has been rumored and caught using Tether to launder money. So another Substack article I thought was really interesting, and I brought this guy...
Substack newsletter near you.
That's right. I brought this guy a couple of times recently. I consider him to be the mayor of Substack, Ted Gioia, who is the honest broker. He wrote an article about how the streaming services and other organizations are now basically trying to annoy you into paying them. All right. And an ugly new marketing service, ugly new marketing strategy is driving me nuts and you too. And that's its purpose. They're basically showing so
English,
many.
motherfucker, do you speak it?
Occasionally. Okay. That they're all right. That always be closing. Of course, we've got the famous Glenn Ross quote. All right. But it's
always B
C closing.
C
That's
closing.
right. All right. So he said, in recent days, a new marketing strategy's emerged. I've never seen it before, and I wish it would go away. You probably do too. Here's the new marketing playbook of 2025. Don't try to close. Don't try to sell. Don't try to persuade. Don't even listen. The goal now is merely to annoy, and the big companies are doing it on purpose. He's talking about sticking ads in everything. All right. Big streaming platforms are the experts at this new marketing tool. They want you to pay for a premium ad-free subscription. The more annoying the commercials, the more likely you are to pay. You'll pay just to get rid of the ad. How many people here have Rumble Premium or Disney Plus without ads or Netflix without the ads? And then there's different tiers. And this is what the article talks about, is basically you're paying a jack, all right, to keep those ads off of your stuff because nobody wants the ads. Very interesting article. So check that one out. That'll be again in the description.
Capitalism.
I also wrote an article this week. I published something about Rockfin. I don't write all that much, but I have been motivated to write some stuff lately. One of them, I got pretty upset because I found out about 2 weeks ago that now when creators go live on Rockfin, they no longer have the option to make the stream live to all, free to all. But now it's only available to premium subscribers of Rockfin who pay $15 per month, either to a channel of their own or on anyone on the platform. All right. So this is another rug pull that they've now done to creators that told them that they would be able to go live and publish and do it. And it's their discretion what they wanted a paywall. All right. So I wrote this article about that, but that was only part of it. All right. Steve from Slow News Day and AM Wake Up has not been streaming to Rockfin and has lost a lot of his revenue because of it, because he was making money with Rockfin monthly until they decided to rug pull. They rug pulled on their token. They started paying out and not providing monthly statements. What's interesting is that Mint Press News can still upload content without paywalling it. And I think it's because they're uploading and not live streaming. And maybe that because they haven't live streamed, that Rockfin hasn't gotten to them yet. But a lot of people haven't abandoned Rockfin yet. And that's also a surprise, considering how shitty that they've treated the creators and how they've been making the service worth less and less by making it available to fewer and fewer people. And yet they persist. And I'll call them out. Jimmy Dore, The Duran, Grand Theft World, Garland Nixon, Macroaggressions with Charlie Robinson, Revolutionary Blackout Network, and Savvy Sabs, Truthwire, and that's my brother Pasta and Fee, Jason Burmis and Sam Tripoli and Grimerica. They're all still using Rockfin. Tinfoil Hat Podcast. Why? I'm not sure what kind of viewer or tip activity they're still getting. I guarantee you it's not their primary source of revenue. So for the extra couple of bucks, you're giving them all your content for free and letting them paywall it for you? Fuck, man. So Mariam Hanine, who is the B lady, you may or may not know, she's got a channel on all the different platforms, including Substack. She also had her channel zeroed out of followers from Rockfin. She had her ability to log in and get her subscriber list and to manage her content and even take it down if she so chose. That was all removed. So on June 9th, she posted to Twitter that she had hired a lawyer to send a letter to Rockfin demanding payment. They claim they paid Ray tokens to a crypto wallet. Of course, we know Ray is worthless at this point because they sunset the token 4 months ago. So even if the Ray was sitting in there, she couldn't cash it out or exchange it for anything. She claims she never gave them the access to that wallet, and they were fraudulently delivering Ray to a wallet that they knew she did not have access to. I don't know. Either way, it's shady and it's negligence. All right. And it's only about $1,000, which will end up in small claims court, if that, which my guess. Unless other Rockfin creators decide to join in this lawsuit, potentially that might be filed as a class action. All of the creators that had damages could potentially pool their resources together and institute a class action lawsuit against Rockfin. And if they decide to, I will be happy to join that and to provide any material support necessary. All right, and these are all the articles that I've written in the past exposing just what Rockfin has done going back to last September. Fuck Rockfin. Rug pulling, scamming pieces of shit. All right.
Receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots, everything.
Now this is my tweet of the week. I had a little fun with this one because Johnny Graz, shout out to Johnny Graz. A lot of people like him and know him. All right. He said, he says, looks like the script went out this morning from the ICE protests the other day. Because literally, Wall Street apes, elite MAGA, Griswold Jenna, and Ann Jones all literally copy-pasted pretty much the exact same tweet. So they all got the script. Okay, looks exactly in caps, and just switch the signs. All these signs, switch the signs. Huh. Almost like it's coordinated. So I said, you've got to coordinate. Mushroom shirt and the mushroom belt and the mushroom jacket. And come on, he's got the mushroom socks too. And then he made a little. And then he took the material and he made a little thing for the pocket, right? And I had another one. This was again. So I joined AM Wake Up. Where's the other tweet? Oh, I guess it's not there. Hang on. Let me go get the other tweet that I wanted to highlight from this week's tweet of the week. Where is it? This one. All right. This just happened, and I did want to call attention to it. Luigi Mangione, the psyop known as Luigi. This just in. Luigi's next court appearance has now been postponed from June 26th to September 16th. Spread the word, everyone.
It's a psyop.
My quote is, I guess it looks like they have enough psyops booked for the summer already. Push this one to the fall. They need more time to manufacture a narrative and let more people forget that this entire case is flawed and that this guy never shot anyone. This was a corporate crime through and through. They hired a hitman. And we talked about who potentially did it. Allegedly and potentially, the Carlyle Group had certainly the motivation to want to whack out Brian Thompson. Allegedly. Now, again, was on a show. I was on AM Wake Up earlier this week. On Friday, I joined after the Independent Review was over on Friday. That's actually at INN Newsletter. I'm sorry, IndieMediaToday.com. I put that out. All the appearances that I do on other shows that I clip out or link, I put there. I also, again, did the one-on-one with Matt Weinglass. That's at INNNewsletter.com. You can watch that ad-free over there at INNNewsletter.com. Wanted to now also shout out our friends that are struggling financially and fighting cancer that and other issues now. So Shanda Masta from Beauty and the Boomer, one half of Beauty and the Boomer, where she still needs to cover some money for her bills. So if anybody is able to, we'd love for you to be able to send Shanda a couple of bucks. We also had
not a tumor.
We also had an update from Andrew Zygmunt Smith over at Action for Assange, formerly. His daughter Anne-Marie actually was leaving Cincinnati after 6 weeks of treatment and therapy, and they were headed home to start to resume life. Again, thank you to everybody who has contributed. They've raised over $6,500. They raised the goal to $7,500 last week. They certainly could use some help. Then we've also got our friend Oz the Boomer. Oz also needs some help. So if anybody is able to, ko-fi.com/Oz the Boomer. You can go there, drop him a Ko-fi, $5, $10, $20. Certainly could use the help. And then this week, I unfortunately had to add another one. And luckily, nothing health-wise is happening here negatively to Amber. Not to Amber, to Halo Benson's daughter, Aspen, not Amber. Aspen got into a crazy situation, and if you read Halo's message, it's kind of long as to what happened, but she's looking at potentially being indicted on charges that carry a mandatory minimum of 33 years. So she needs to be found not guilty, innocent on charges. She had plans to attend a music festival in Florida with her best friend and his two friends. With her bestie and his girlfriend, they pulled out at the last minute. Aspen went with their friend David, who was described as a safe person by her trusted friend. Aspen's a high-functioning autist. All right. We rely on trusted friends quite often now that Aspen's an adult. She lacks the discernment that most people take for granted. She only sees what's presented. So she went to the festival. On the way back, the RV was pulled over. The guy she's traveling with had a lot of drugs in his RV. She didn't know it. It's customary in Peach County, Georgia, to arrest anyone else in a vehicle with the same charges as the person suspected of a crime. David, the owner of the RV, told the cops at the time of their arrest and judge at the initial hearing that she wasn't part of it, nor privy to his operation, but of course they didn't believe that. All right. This guy, David, was apparently also part of the Free Assange movement. It's kind of messed up. Prior to securing bail, she spent 15 days in jail. To say that they're ill-equipped to provide for someone with special needs is a gross understatement. They lack both the knowledge and the will to meet her needs, both mentally and physically. Like many autistics, Aspen has chronic health problems that require constant management. They didn't give a fuck. It'll likely take her months to recover from what's already happened. The idea of being labeled a criminal and the threat of decades in prison has traumatized her, as I think at most. Fighting these charges will cost a small fortune that they don't have. They already borrowed everything that they could to secure a lawyer for the bail hearing and pay the bail. They now need to pay for the lawyer moving forward, some specialists, an investigator, travel expenses, $30,000. Anything anybody can do. Oh, got a long way to go. So anything anyone can do, really, please help Halo, help Aspen. Please do. Again, we created a news site so that you can, where do we go to find independent news that's ad-free, that has been vetted, that has trusted sources, that they're all one-stop shop. Well, we didn't really find one out there. So we made one, and it's called IndieNewsNow.com. INDIENewsNow.com. Go ahead.
Not Spatula City.
No, it's not Spatula City. All right. It even works in multiple languages. So if you speak another language besides English, it will convert this web page into whatever language you speak. Although it only links to the articles, it doesn't actually switch the articles to that language, unfortunately. Again, this is where we would read, my son? Keep the news free. This is where you can hook up INN with a link. Also at the old shop, which is embedded here, or at our new shop, which I'm still working on getting links for. I tweeted it out. But here are the INN shirts that you can get. And again, there's me, me with the red tie. I told them I wanted a green tie one also. I sent them the graphic for that. We deserve better psyops, and all the different shirts that you know and love are here over at the Indie News shop. So check that out. And one more time, again, I know we asked to hook up a bunch of people with some GoFundMes, but we also could use a couple of coins to help fund the news that you want to see. So if you're able to, and it means, These are the supporters on our wall of fame. Thank you again so much to everyone that's been on that wall already. You can do that by joining it, by supporting Cash App, $Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, at IndieNewsNow.com, which I just showed you, and then over at the Substacks at INNNewsletter.com and at IndieMediaToday.com, where this show has been live for the last 2 hours or so, hour 45. So again, welcome to everybody on Substack. Thank you, everyone there. We're going to take a few-minute break, and then we will come back to do boats smashing into other boats, which if you haven't seen this before, is our React show over on INNNewsletter.com and over on INN8 The Ocho, which is our React and Fun channel over on YouTube and Rumble. We'll be on the regular INN channels at Twitch and Kick and others. But yes, we're at The Ocho, and we're switching over to INNNewsletter.com over on Substack. So figure about midnight Eastern. I love you all. Thank you and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Fuck Israel. Fuck Trump. Fuck Zionism. Keep independent media free and support independent media because we need it more than ever, fam. Thanks, and see you at boats, everyone.
Bye-bye! Bye-bye, Israel!
Mwah. Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here away. The cost of living isn't much to me, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe?
Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote.